Many professional evaluators are concerned with promoting social justice through their evaluation practice. They believe that in a truly just society, there would be equal outcomes between racial groups, especially on indicators like socioeconomic status, education, and professional representation. Now, I have not done a formal survey, but I will make an educated guess that most evaluators believe that capitalism, unconscious bias, and systemic racism are the main culprits for the disparities between racial groups, and that we will only be able to achieve equity through greater government intervention to restrict the free market and redistribute resources. One example of systemic racism often discussed today is the practice of redlining. In the not-too-distant past, banks and other lenders in the United States would refuse to grant home mortgages in certain neighborhoods. Because these neighborhoods were mostly minority communities, it is believed that this practice was motivated by racism and caused undue harm in these communities. Walter E. Williams, however, argues in his book The State Against Blacks that it is not the racism of the banks that caused this disparity in lending, but rather state intervention in the free market that caused redlining to appear in the first place. According to Williams, many states have laws that place a ceiling or a limit on interest rates. Williams states, "Given these ceilings, banks have an incentive to ration credit. For a number of reasons, the probability of default per dollar lent is greater in some neighborhoods than in others. Moreover, several laws designed to protect borrowers make the collection and eviction of debtors who are in default more costly to bankers." I have little doubt that these interest rate ceilings were imposed as a means to protect the borrower from predatory lending. However, according to Williams, these laws had the opposite effect, in that banks just simply refused to lend in neighborhoods that had higher rates of default. This is yet another example of how government imposing its will on the market has harmed minority communities, particularly Black American communities. Williams continues, "The real villain in the redlining issue is the legislature that imposes, say, a 10% interest rate ceiling. Such a ceiling, in effect, says that if an applicant is not a good enough risk for a mortgage at 10%, he will not get a mortgage at all. Although without a ceiling, he may get a mortgage at a 15% rate. If evaluators really want to improve the welfare of disadvantaged minority communities, then they should correctly identify the source of those disadvantages. From a liberty-focused perspective, most of these disadvantages come from anti-free market government policies, and such policies should be modified or abolished." Unfortunately, the book The State Against Blacks is out of print, and used copies are kind of expensive. But if you would like to read a book by Walter E. Williams that discusses similar subject matter, be sure to check out his book Race and Economics: How Much Can Be Blamed on Discrimination.